If you're old enough like me, you probably remember the way the world was before social media and before mainly computers were a main part of the household, where you're constantly inundated with information and news and opinions and just sensory overload at this point, right? And the most difficult part about dealing with all this is the fact that you now have to try to filter out what's fact from fiction, what's truth from opinion. And it's difficult because honestly, the way it seems is everything that you look at, everything that you ingest, be it social media, be it news, about this much percent of it is actual news, and this much percent of it is opinions, it's emotions, it's garbage, it's things that are meant to just get you on the hook and keep you reading and keep you following and keep you subscribing. More and more just means more money, means more attention, means more ratings, you name it. Anyway, today we're going to talk about more of this crap in the news. Stay tuned. What's up, everyone? Eric Yale, founder of Planiversity, back with you for another week in travel news. I gotta say, I love it. I love reading the news. I love the things that come down because more than anything, it's just entertainment for me, okay? I think of that scene in the movie Training Day where Denzel Washington was talking about reading the newspaper, and he says that it's 90% bullshit, but it's entertaining, right? So when I watch the news, when I look at the news, I'm just forced to think about all the other garbage that I see. And I hate to say garbage, but maybe garbage is the wrong word. Okay, let's rewind this. Let's go back. Remove garbage from the vocabulary. Let's just say content, all right? Think about social media today. Think about news today. A lot of it is what seems anyways about this much actual news and this much emotional based content, right? And when I say emotionally based content, what I'm saying is a lot of it is designed to paint a picture in your head, trigger your imagination, make you think, make you relate these scenarios, these stories to your own life and how you would react, how you would respond to them. And it triggers an emotional pull with you that makes you think, okay, I want more of this. I want less of this. This is entertaining to me. A lot of it is just designed to get more follows, more likes, more ratings, more reviews, more subscriptions, you name it. There's a lot of it. And when I actually start looking through the news, I'm actually blown away by a lot of the stuff that's put out there. Just because most of it it's not factual based. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to look at something and say, hey, look, this doesn't appear to be based on any kind of fact, right? This doesn't appear to be based on any true actual statistics or quantitative or qualitative data. It's mostly just opinion based, right? And a lot of times it seems like the majority of people don't actually want to know the information that's factual based. They want to know the stuff that's more emotional than anything. Why? Because it's more entertaining. When I jump on Instagram, I assure you I'm not jumping on Instagram to actually be informed about things in a very factual way. When I jump on Instagram and I scroll through there for 20 minutes or so, just looking at video after video, I'm doing so because I'm in this numb mode and I just want to be entertained, right? Because that's all it is to me. I can't actually go to Instagram and look at videos and say, hey, look, this is awesome. This is factual. Unless it's something that I could be completely objective to, like cooking videos. I love cooking videos on there, how to make breads, how to make certain meals. And those, there's no emotional content to those, right? But most of the information that's put out there is people either entertaining you by doing some kind of funny video, which I love, some kind of awesome video, or just content that they're talking about things and they're sharing their opinions, their ideas, their thoughts, and it's just so emotionally based. It's weird. So the most difficult thing to me today is to look at the amount of information flowing our way, right? It's all becoming sensory overload. We've never experienced, or a lot of people have never experienced a time in their lives where there wasn't news being forced down their throat, right? When I was a kid, now I'm 43 years old today, But when I was a kid, this was long before social media. This was still just during the time of having a TV and a radio at home and nothing more, right? We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have internet until I was about late teens, early 20. In fact, I don't even remember playing with the internet until 1999. That's the actual point in my life. Computers existed before that. But that was the actual point in my life where I would type in a URL, go to a website, and actually review their content. All right. Anytime before that, if I was on a computer, it was purely to play games or to type up a paper. And that was it. Simple use. I didn't use it for anything else. I might have even used it for like a calculator, but I definitely never used a computer to get information. Well, today, you don't even have to go far to get information. Information typically flows to you. If you can give companies either your phone number or your email address, you just sit back and let the information flow your way. And for a lot of people, over time, that just becomes so much. So one of the things that I did was I actually signed up for Google Alerts, and I put in there, anything travel related, travel planning, event planning wise, things that focus around what Planiversity is involved in. And I got to tell you, I think it's absolutely hilarious. Some of the things that come across, some of the other things they're obviously more information based, and I think that's important. Most of the things are thought provoking and not 100% factually based, and a lot of the other things are, of course, very emotionally based. They're opinions, they're things that are just written. I don't know. It's almost like to check the block, right? It's like, hey, we got a blank palette. We got to fill this with something. Give me some kind of content. We'll put it out there. I don't care if it's 100% accurate or not. Just give me content. We'll put it up, and at least we have something. And of course, the more you have out there, the more people are going to subscribe because they want to see more, especially if it's anything that's very emotionally triggering to them, Recently, I was watching on YouTube, and I thought this was actually pretty funny. There's a lot of videos, as a result of the conflict going on in the Ukraine right now between Russia and Ukraine. There's a lot of videos surfacing about the dangers of nuclear war. Okay, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I've been in the military for over 20 years. I'm not going to lie. This is not a good deal, especially if you're in Europe right now. But this is nothing new. People today are a lot more invested in seeing the world continue to progress, to make sure that people who are intent on destroying the world with nuclear missiles do not remain in power. Okay. Take that as you will, but I don't think that we're at a point in our life where honestly nuclear missiles are going to start falling out of the sky. We're going to enter a nuclear winter, and next thing you know, we're all going to be living in our basement or perishing in the next few years. I don't think that's going to happen. In fact, I would almost bet anything that that's not going to happen. But what I do think is we're in a very unfortunate situation. We haven't seen a conflict on the European continent in years, decades, and now we have again. So it's unfortunate. Hopefully there will be an end to it soon. But the fact that this conflict is constant ongoing right now, and who knows when the end is really providing a lot of content for all these survivalists online, all these naysayers, all these conspiracy theorists, all these people that are just dumping tons and tons of negative information out there. And I can't believe, to be honest with you, why there's 400,000 subscribers, 1 million plus subscribers on some channels, 150,000 subscribers. It's almost like people can't help themselves but delve into information that is heavily negative or that paints this world picture of doom and chaos. Like it almost seems like that's our comfort zone. And we all know, I'm no psychologist, but we all know that people are more drawn to things that are emotionally triggering, right? So, it's gossip. That's what gossip is. Gossip is highly triggering. It pulls people in. It's interesting, right? And that's what a lot of this information is. But when I see these videos popping up of people saying, get out of Europe now, stock up your basement with everything, start buying this, start buying that, it just kind of blows my mind. I'm like, all right, this is definitely not a good time, especially if you're in the Ukraine, Eastern Europe altogether. But I don't like the idea that there's information out there that is causing people to panic, and this is nothing new. If you look back to the 1950s in the United States, we had the same type of thing. If you look back 100 years before that, I'm sure we had the same thing. Life goes on. All right. People in the 40s were still having babies in Poland. Right. And it must have seemed to them more than almost anyone in the world that there was no reason to go on, but they did. And look at us today. All right. So I'm blown away usually by the information that's out there, by all the negative and funny and entertaining things. But this is what I take it as. It's mostly entertaining, right? I don't want to sit there and invest too much into it, but I think it's actually funny to talk about. So let's stop talking about all that stuff. Let's get into the travel news, because I'm just going to pull up 3 simple stories that just came up. So when I get these Google travel alerts and I start seeing all these different little articles, I think it's very entertaining to actually pay attention to those. And when I dig through them, I'm like, all right, well, this probably has a little bit of weight to it. And then this one over here, yeah, what the hell are they talking about? And then this one, just purely entertainment. So I'm going to stop playing the guessing game with you. We're just going to get into it right now. So let me just switch on over here so you can actually take a look here. The first story that we're going to talk about, hang on a second, is from Boston Globe, right? This was published on October 30th, 2022. The title of this is "We've Never Taken a Vacation Together." And in quotes beneath that, it says, "No effort has been made by him to plan a trip." I thought this was funny. This is actually a good time for a shameless plug for me for Planiversity. So if you haven't checked out Planiversity, you need to check it out, right? We started selling licenses recently. We are upping our campaigns to bring in more customers, and we've been getting a lot of great feedback. In fact, we've been getting a lot of feedback from customers on things that they would like to see, possible little improvements that could be made, and ways that the system could just overall be improved. And we're so happy about that. But if you haven't checked it out, check it out. Travel planning is a pain in the ass, right? It is an absolute pain in the ass. Any kind of planning is a pain in the ass, but that is why we are gold in this situation, right? Because Planiversity takes that long extended process and it just condenses it down so you can actually have a legitimate travel or event plan in less than 10 minutes put together, right? As long as you know the details, you put in all of your itinerary information, you compile your notes, your schedule, you gather all the resources that you need, and we do that research for you. You add copies of your documents, you make plans, all that you can do on Planiversity to put together an event or a trip, and we go ahead, the system organizes all of that information into a single PDF document, and that is it. And you can personalize it now, which is even better. And as of this week, you're going to actually be able to upload your own image. So not only can you personalize it, but you can uber personalize it. So if you're a wedding planner, if you belong to a fraternity and you want to have some kind of party, now you can put an actual image of your fraternity logo on the cover of this packet. If you belong to a university, you can put your university logo on the cover of it. It's awesome, and it's very affordable, $1.99 per packet. If you want to go with an annual plan, it's very affordable. If you're an individual, if you're a business, it's also very affordable. And right now we have a lifetime license offer. Lifetime license, think about that. Unlimited use for lifetime, $49.99 from now until the end of the year. So check it out. Anyway, that was my shameless plug. Listen to here. So planning, all right? Let me give you the content. If you're just listening to this podcast in the car, so this is what the individual is saying. This is written by a girl. We'll call her anonymous. And she said that her boyfriend and her are in their late 20s, and they've been together for 3 years, and they have a great relationship, yada, yada. And she says that she finds herself nagging him about the lack of effort he puts into planning dates. They've been on, 3 dates this year, all planned by her. So the thing is, she's saying that when it comes to planning things, he doesn't contribute, right? In the 3 years they've been together, she says they've never been on holiday. She's mentioned multiple times how she would love to go abroad, and told him he needs to do the research, and then she will plan it 50-50, but no effort's been made by him. Now, I'm just going to take a shot in the dark here and say, maybe this has to do with some level of expectation, okay? I'm not going to sit here and champion for men or champion for women, but I'm going to say that sometimes maybe the expectation someone has for what planning or what amount of planning should be put into something is maybe a little too high. Nobody knows the backstory, so I'm not going to sit here and try and answer this, although we are going to take a look at how it was responded to by this individual, this editorial, whoever did this. But one of the things that she talks about is she has seen his skiing trip with his new friends, and he's planned some skiing trips, and he posted a picture on Instagram of this trip, the skiing trip that he planned with his friends, and said that he was just going away with his friends, just to find out there was girls in the pictures too, and she feels rejected. So I think that's ultimately the bottom line of this article, is not about how terrible of a planner he is, or about how little he puts into planning, but more or less that she feels rejected by his lack of effort. I don't think it has anything to do with the females. I think ultimately the bottom line is, when you read between the lines, that she doesn't like the fact that he doesn't try. And maybe he doesn't try because the process is just too difficult. And honestly, like, I've been down that road. That's why I created this service, is because planning is a pain in the ass. Let's just be honest. And really, if you are somebody who has high expectations of what a plan should include, maybe it just becomes even more of a pain in the ass. And then on top of that, if you do invest your time into planning, and then somebody comes back and they keep telling you about how you should have done this or done that, or maybe you should have planned this or get some more information on this, at some point you're just going to kind of write it off and say, you know what, this is not worth my time. I don't want to do this anymore. So that is why you need to look into planning services. It doesn't matter if it's Planiversity. We did make a service that is very detail oriented, and this is something that a lot of people would love. But one of the things that I would say is use some kind of service. I mean, maybe the process of actual travel planning or event planning or just planning in general just seems too daunting to many people, because they fail to be able to keep everything organized, right? You have to make this call, you have to make that call, you have to find out prices, you got to do a little bit of shopping around. I mean, a lot of times guys are just not like that. Guys don't like to do a lot of shopping around. We might make 2 or 3 calls, compare 2 or 3 prices, and then we say, okay, I'm making a decision. That's it. We don't like to invest a whole lot, but that's not just guys. There are a lot of women like that too. But the biggest thing is, planning can be a pain. That's why you need to find what services are out there to try and make the process a little bit easier. If you have something that takes away at least half the work from you, then it's worth investing in, right? I think we can all agree on that. All right, so we're gonna shuffle this way. Let me take a look though quick and see how this was responded to. All right. They come back and they respond. The first is the planning problem. Some people are just bad at planning and don't like doing it. It's possible that his pals set everything up for him, and then all he has to do is give them money and logistics are set. So that's a very good possibility, right? Another thing is they say, can you live with a person who's passive about dates and vacations? Can you stay in the relationship if you have to plan everything? It just goes on and on. I'm not going to get into the emotional content of this, but ultimately, if you're bad at planning, or if you are good at planning, but someone who you want to help plan is terrible at planning, recommend something to them. Make their life a little bit easier, because maybe the reason they're doing this is because it just seems a little too overwhelming. If you give them something to actually make the process a little bit easier, maybe they'll surprise you. All right, let's go ahead and leave that one behind and jump on to the next article, which was published by a website called 11alive.com. And yes, this was pushed out on Google Alerts. So the title of this is Holiday Travel Will Be More Expensive This Year, Experts Say. So this is the first article was what I was talking about when it comes to emotional content, right? It's nothing engaging. It's entertaining, if anything. People aren't really looking at a story about planning complications. They're looking at a story of a conflict between a girl and her boyfriend. All right. So it's emotional based, and there's really no content to that other than the fact that it's just simply entertaining, right? Now jump into this, and now we got middle of the road. So I look at this, and as somebody who owns a travel planning service, I see this title, Holiday Travel Will Be More Expensive This Year, Experts Say. Well, as you start going down through it, they talk about airline tickets will be considerably higher. And let's see. Now, this information was actually produced by, one of the people that actually comments in it is a woman named Lori Garrow. She's an expert in aviation and travel behavior in Georgia Tech, and explained to 11 Alive that the rule of buying tickets a month before travel changed with the pandemic. All right, so that's just one of the points that's brought up here. But ultimately, bottom line for this is travel is going to be more expensive this year, and I have to disagree. All right. And the reason I disagree is because travel has always been more or less a larger expenditure in your budget, right? If you are going to the grocery store, you're like, okay, this week it's going to cost me £100 or $100, €100, whatever. That's not that big of a hit. That's something you actually kind of factor in. But if you go to a baseball game or a hockey game, I've gone to a hockey game in Philadelphia where, tickets for two, seating, parking, food cost me ultimately $250, right? So that is a larger than usual expenditure, and it's discretionary. It's completely discretionary, but I still spent it. I still went. I had a good time. But it was discretionary, and that's not the type of thing that I factor into my budget the way that I would groceries or gasoline or utilities. This is something that is extra. I don't need it. I want it, and it's going to cost me more than usual, so I have to set enough money aside to make sure that I cover that event, right? Because, I'm not just going to arbitrarily throw money at it. I look at this and I'm like, man, this is actually pretty expensive. So, there's just the straight up purchase of tickets, or you can also find deals, because deals do exist. All right. That's one way of getting around these types of things. And then when we talk about travel is that other thing. Like when I was planning a trip from Germany to Thailand and China back in 2011, I didn't look at the event like, hey, this is going to be pretty cost efficient. We're going to find good ways to save money. No, I knew that I was going to be dumping quite a bit of money. And I'm not even somebody who goes after expensive accommodations, right? I just go after reasonable accommodations. I try and find middle of the road. I don't want bottom, and I don't want to pay for the top. So I try and shoot for straight in the middle. I don't fly first class. I don't do a lot of things that are unnecessary. I just want to get myself there. And when it came to that trip, I ended up spending around $5,000 for a trip for two, from Europe to Asia, 3 countries. And it was great, but that was the type of thing that I did not expect to walk into and be able to save money on, or expend a little or more money on, less money on. Well, I can't even talk today. This is what happens when you don't drink enough coffee. But anyway, so these experts are saying that this year in 2022, travel is going to be more expensive than usual. And I'm going to call the BS on that, because I don't think that's going to be the case at all. In fact, when you start doing research, and just simple research, I'm just going into Expedia, just like always, they have their travel deals posted. So take everything with a grain of salt, okay? There are certain areas that you can go to where the accommodations are going to be more expensive during certain points in the year. There's going to be certain areas that you go to where it's less expensive during certain times of the year. That's just the way it is. That's the way that it's always been. And I can tell you, as somebody who flies back and forth to Europe on a monthly basis, for the last however many years I've been doing this, let's go with the last 5 years that I've been doing this, every wintertime, the ticket prices go up. Every summertime, the ticket prices go up. And every spring and fall, the ticket prices drop back to their normal range. And the reason why that is because in the summertime, schools are off, colleges are off. It's just like Christmas time. Colleges have their Christmas break, schools have their Christmas break, families are taking vacation off of work, so everybody's traveling, the demand goes up, the prices follow with it, right? So to say that prices are going to be more this year, I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. In fact, we've seen that, yes, there is a strain on energy right now, but it hasn't really impacted us significantly, all right? Now, I'm not saying that this has anything to do with the economy, because general goods and services have gone up in price, all right? I can't even tell you the last time I paid $10 for 2 crates of eggs, or 2 things of eggs, which, 36 eggs, something like that. But $10, my God. It's just ridiculous. But travel-wise, like the cost of flights, I've still booked recently round-trip tickets for around $500 to $600 to Germany. And that hasn't changed. That hasn't changed. The low seasons for the last 5 years, it's always been that range. Same thing going into the next few months. I've already booked my tickets. I've already booked a few hotels, and nothing has changed. The thing is, this article, it says that after COVID, we're no longer in a period of time where you can buy your tickets a month out. And they actually recommend 6 weeks. Well, I'm going to say you need to go earlier than that, right? You need to go 75 days out. That's a magic number. Aim for 2 to 3 months out. All right. If you can do 6 months out, even better. What I would recommend is also searching for deals. So go after the deals. You don't always have to, unless, maybe you're like me and you're just kind of locked into a commitment where you need to go to a certain area. But if you're just looking to travel, there are deals everywhere. All right. You just have to do the homework. That's the only thing. If I get online and I say, okay, I want to fly from Philadelphia to Orlando, maybe the prices in December go up a little bit, and I'm sure they will because that's vacation time. It's holiday season. But if I get on there and I say, hey, look, I'm looking for flight deals, I might have to change the airline from what I normally fly. And I might get a deal that says, tickets are 50% off if you fly this date through this date and you return this date through this date. There are ways to navigate the travel booking, situation. There's an entire world of deals out there, and it just requires you to do the research to find those deals. All right. So if you think that there's none available, if you think things are going to really strain your budget, now, it's probably going to seem more expensive, especially if you're someone who is, we'll say middle class in America today, who's suffering the most from the economic hardships of this inflationary period, right? If you're someone who falls into that category, then you probably notice that utilities are going up and shopping's going up, food costs is going up, gas prices are higher, all those things together. Now you're spending 50% more, or 150% of what you spent last year. Might even be 200% of what you were spending several years ago. Now you're spending all this. Now to actually factor in a trip for two, out of state, rental car, hotel accommodations, and see that it's going to cost you $1,000 to $1,500. Yeah, that's going to be a dent in your budget. So, it might not be any higher than usual, but it might seem excessive because everything else has cost you so much money up to this point. So you got to kind of weigh the situation and take a look at everything. And I'm thinking, there is no shortage right now. There's no shortage of deals. Hotels are not going to benefit from not negotiating their pricing. So I posted this a few months ago, that if you are somebody who goes out and you actually go into a hotel, this was actually a video that we released a few months ago. I want to say July timeframe. But one of the things that I did was I went down to Florida and I actually took a break, and I didn't even book any hotels. I made it a plan to go from hotel to hotel and actually just stop in and ask them what the prices were, ask them what their availability was, and then negotiate the price. And I saved, just asking that question off the bat, I saved 20 to 40% immediately. I would walk into a place, I would say, hey, can you tell me what your availability is? They might say, 60%, 65%, it's 30%, we're booked up, 50%. And then I'd say, okay, I need a hotel room for two for the night, and when they would come back with the price, I would say, can you do better than that? And then they would say, yeah, I can knock it down to this for you. And immediately I was like, it blew my mind, like $30 off, just like that, just for asking a question. And then you start really working with them to try and save those prices. So there is no shortage out there. If a hotel has no travelers going there, then, they have all these rooms available. Your negotiating power goes up significantly. If nobody's flying, then your prices are going to go down. That's not something you have to worry about. So travel hasn't dropped at all. Travel prices might increase in certain areas, but it certainly balances out in other areas. And let me tell you, travel deals are not going away. There's always going to be deals. You just have to shop around for them. So, all right, let's get past that, because I love it when articles like that come up, because a lot of people, they just kind of take that and run with it. And they're like, oh, travel's going to be really expensive this year. And I say, no. It's not going to be more expensive this year. You just have to navigate a little bit more to find the same deals. That's not a big deal. It's always been the same way. You might have to shop around. You might have to play with dates. You might have to play with locations, but you still can get away. If you set a budget of $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, whatever, and you say, I want to stay within this budget and go somewhere nice, you can do that. You absolutely can do that. You just have to do the homework. All right, last topic we're going to talk about. So last week I finished up, or the last podcast I finished up with discussing the crime in New York City and how, honestly, I don't find that travel to New York City right now is worth it if you're investing a lot into doing it. All right. If you're coming from Europe, South America, Asia, and you're like, I really want to see Christmas or New York City during Christmas time. All right, fine. Go see it. But for me, I would say that based on the current crime rates there, the trend of, minor crimes, simple crimes, even significant crimes is increasing significantly in New York City. There's worse places than New York City. I mean, don't get me wrong. And I think the leadership in New York City is actually starting to see the problem. And they're starting to address the problem, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. We've read constantly, if you pay attention to the news, that the subways in New York City are becoming a breeding ground for criminals. So it's not a good place to be. And I would say that there's better times to visit New York City, just like here, there's better times to visit now. One of the number one countries or cities in this country that have the highest crime rate overall, New Orleans. There are better ways to spend your travel than doing it on New Orleans. All right. I'm not for or against New Orleans. I'm just saying that as somebody who owns a travel planning company, one of the things that I like to see people do is spend their hard-earned resources on a vacation or a trip that's going to give them the benefits that they deserve. All right. If you're spending the money, if you're spending the time, if you're giving all of this up, the least you should be doing is going somewhere where you don't have to constantly look over your shoulder and be wondering whether or not you're about to get mugged because you want to go check out a certain street at night. It's just not something you should have to deal with. And that's how I feel about New York. That's how I feel about Chicago. There are certain areas where you can actually pull up crime statistics and see the number of assaults, see the number of attempted murders, the number of vandalisms, car thefts, carjackings, you name it, that are occurring in these cities, and they will tell you where the hot spots are. They will tell you, what's the most common, and ultimately there are some cities that just weigh out heavier in crime than others. And I don't want to see people spend their hard-earned time, money, resources on going to these locations when it's not going to give them the safety and security that they need to enjoy their trip. All right. Especially if I think about a family coming from abroad and they want to spend time, mom, dad, and the two kids, they want to spend time visiting this city, and next thing you know, they're getting mugged. That's horrible. Or they're just advised to not go out at night, because that's even worse. Now you've spent all this time and money to go there and you can't even enjoy it because you're worried that you're going to get mugged. It's terrible. So New Orleans has apparently topped all other cities in the United States as of this month for violent crimes, shootings, and it's terrible, because I feel like a lot of it comes down to leadership, and I feel like there's not a need, or there's no need for this to happen, but it does. And a lot of times it's very cyclical. You'll see cities just like New York City was in the 80s and early 90s. Crime will be high. Different leadership comes in. Things change. Police start enforcing more. Next thing you know, crime goes down. New York City was, golden for years. Everyone wanted to visit it. It was great. And now things are starting to change, right? A lot of that is politics based. So wait till we start talking about Chicago next. But New Orleans. Let's talk about New Orleans. So I pulled up this community crime map, which is provided by this company, LexisNexis Risk Solutions. All right, and you can actually find it on communitycrimemap.com. So what you do is you go here, you pull up this information. You can narrow the search parameters by date ranges and by crimes. Right. So what I did was I went ahead and pulled up New Orleans. So I would actually recommend this based on anywhere you're going. If you're going somewhere, pull up that location, especially the hot spots in that location. If you're going to New York City, you're probably going to aim to see like Times Square. You're going to see the financial district. You want to see all around Rockefeller Center. You want to go to the primary hot spots, especially during Christmas, right? Well, it's the same thing for New Orleans. If you're going to New Orleans, you want to see the French Quarter. You want to see Bourbon Street. You want to see all those spots that are famous, right? You're probably not going to venture out into middle of, I don't know the name of this area, New Orleans. You want to see the areas that are most popular, the high tourist areas, right? So what I did was I have the map here zeroed in on New Orleans, and we're going to focus on the French Quarter and Bourbon Street area. All right. So I want you to pay attention to how this whole map works. This is actually pretty awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up into the filter section. We're going to narrow this for the last month. It's already set. Date range October 1st to October 31st, which is today. We're going to go ahead, and there is a huge list of things that you can select from, that discriminators that you can put on the map. So if I want to look for, let's just say trespassing. If I want to look for trespassing, I just go ahead and select trespassing, and let's say vandalism as well. I've got my date range. I've got the criteria selected. I just go ahead and apply that. And now those incidents pop up on the map. And it's actually quite a few. So we're looking for the last 30 days. You know what? I'm even going to tighten the parameters on this. We're going to go from October 15th until October 31st. So I want to see the last 2 weeks, right? So I look at these, all these icons pop up on the map. I can actually click on them, and I can see simple criminal damage, vandalism at this location. I come down to another one on Phillip Street, New Orleans, simple criminal damage, more vandalism, and then trespassing. These are simple things, right? These are things that probably happen quite a bit in cities, especially the larger the city, the more it's going to happen. And now let's get rid of those, and let's actually put in shoplifting. All right, so map resets. Hey, look, there's not a ton of shoplifting, which I can't even believe that. I don't believe that, to be honest with you. I think there's probably not a lot of reported shoplifting. That's my guess. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the filter here. Now let's get into this. Again, it's New Orleans for the past 2 weeks. I'm going to go ahead and select aggravated assault, simple assault, attempted homicide, burglary. We're really going to get into good stuff. Residential burglary and homicides. And let's see, robbery of individuals and even sexual assault. Let's apply those and see what happens to the map. Boom. Amazing. That is a lot of icons, which tells me there's a lot of reports. Now, again, keep in mind, these are all things that are actually reported. So if I just click on this one icon, this is a simple assault, and this is the agency that it's reported by, is the City of New Orleans Police Department, right? I click on another icon. This is a residential burglary, Cleveland Street, reported by City of New Orleans. In fact, all of these are reported by the City of New Orleans Police Department. Come over here, we have an aggravated assault, City of New Orleans Police Department. All right. So the fact that the police department is reporting all of these tells me that the only things being reported on here are the things that are reported by the police department. And we know that there is a ton of crime that occurs that is actually not reported, right? If somebody steals a candy bar and runs out of the store, I have my doubts, especially if it's a regular thing. I have my doubts that somebody's actually going to call the police and report it. Start zooming in, and we'll actually get down to the Bourbon Street area, all right? And let's take a look here. So in fact, we can actually zoom in and really get in on this area, the French Quarter. All right. So I want to see just the French Quarter alone. All right. So sexual assaults, aggravated rape, reported by the police department. All right. So now it doesn't seem like that much, but that is a lot for just the last 2 weeks. All right. If I go back and let's go ahead and clear this. Now let's select and deselect all. Let's just check out homicides. All right, let's check out attempted homicide and actual homicide. Apply. And we'll go for the last month. So let's use October 1st. Apply. All right, so not a whole lot right here near the French Quarter. There's one attempted homicide, and what is this? 8XX Gravier, New Orleans. City of New Orleans Police Department reported this. Now, if I zoom out and we encompass the entire city, just for the last month, what do we got? We have We got a few going on, right? We got homicide, shooting, manslaughter in this location, manslaughter in this location, manslaughter in this location. Now, here's the great thing. So let's check for the last year. Let's go back. Let's say we'll start at January 1st. Now look at this. This map is actually showing a ton of homicides on the maps. Now, this is just New Orleans. This is ridiculous, all right? Now, if I go into the filter section, it doesn't actually give me the number on here. But once I start including other things on here, now let's say probably the biggest concern for tourists would be robbery, aggravated assault, simple assault, and yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Let's see what we've got for the last year. Oh my God, this is a ton, especially around the French Quarter. Now, if you're a tourist and you're in this area, this is amazing to me, my God. And most of it from the looks of it is simple battery, simple assault. All right. And these again are just reported events. Now I'm not trying to scare anyone, but this is staggering. This is amazing to me, because if I'm a tourist and I'm going to New Orleans, I want to see Bourbon Street. I want to see where all the action happens. I want to see where the history is. There's a lot of history in New Orleans, but I want to see where everybody goes, where Mardi Gras is. Now, when I look at this is amazing for this last year. And now forget about it. If I start throwing in here, all other criminal, other non-criminal, arson, driving under the influence, disorderly conduct, kidnapping, human trafficking, homicide, death investigation. I started throwing in really the bad stuff, all this stuff, weapons violations, sexual offense, harassment, drugs. Now watch what happens to this area. This is going to be, let's put sexual assault back in there, and attempted homicide. Apply. Watch what it does to this map. This is incredible. There is so much. Now, if I just zoom into the French Quarter alone, it's so much that in certain areas, they just have a number over it. I'm looking at the number 7 in this one location. Disorderly conduct, theft, vandalism, simple assault, shoplifting. It's terrible. Other areas, non-criminal, medical. Here we have theft. I mean, again, these are all reported. Death investigations. It's amazing to me. So this map has become so congested with icons that you can't even see the map below it. That's how busy it is. So the point of the story is really think about where you're going on vacation. All right. If the city or the destination that you're planning on visiting shows up in the news a lot and for more negative news than it is positive, maybe reconsider going to that location. Let's go ahead and transition back. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. All right. I'm not saying New Orleans is a bad place. I'm just saying that right now it's got a problem, and hopefully that problem is temporary, but it's got a big problem with crime, right? And if you're going to spend your hard-earned time, money, resources, your family time, and one thing that you want to ensure is the safety and security of your family and yourself, I would consider not going to these locations that are constantly in the news for negative reasons, being crime, assault, rapings, murder, anything like this. Use your time, use your resources, go somewhere more safe, and I hope that's enough for you. Next time I'm going to talk about Chicago, because Chicago recently, they haven't enacted them yet, but they wrote in or signed into law a couple of bail reforms, non-cash bail reforms. So we're going to start talking about that on the next one, because I really want to dig into this and see if Chicago is even worth visiting right now. Again, everything works on a cycle. Everything is like a pendulum, right? It goes this way and things get bad, and then it goes back this way and things get better, right? I can remember at one point in time when I was a kid, Johannesburg, South Africa was said to be the most dangerous city in the world. Now it's not like that anymore, all right? New York City was said to be a very high crime-ridden city back in the 80s, maybe in the 70s, early 90s, and it changed. It changed, right? Under the right leadership, it changed, and it became a location where everybody wanted to move to. Everyone wanted to live there. Everybody talked about New York. New York, it's great, perfect. And then it's changing now. It's changing, and a lot of that's due to policies, it's due to leadership, it's due to politics, and it's not anything you should have to worry about wasting your time on when it comes to your vacation. Go somewhere different, go somewhere safe. There's a whole world out there just waiting for you, and I hope this has been helpful. Please, as always, be safe, travel safe, be happy in your travels, and Christmas time is coming up, so get ready. We're going to talk about this as we go forward. Today is Halloween, so happy Halloween, safe trick-or-treating. We'll talk to you on the next one. Take care.